Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. This is the weekend market wrap that we're going to take a look for Friday, the week ending Friday, May 30th. And it actually ends not only this week, but the month of May in terms of trading. We'll take a look at the monthly charts in here as we look at the index ETFs. So this week, we had 13 sectors positive and 3 negative. Quite a bit of a reversal from the prior week, 1 up and 15 down. But it's interesting, the week before that, it was 16 up and 0 down. So extreme behavior bouncing back and forth here week by week. Year to date now we're at 50-50, 8 up, 8 down when you take a look at this column. But let's go back up here to the index ETFs. The Qs were the strongest performer this week, edging out the SPY to the upside of 1.9%. Everything was positive. Year to date, though, the Qs are still the leader, but look at the Russell. It's the most negative. The Dow's also still in the red on the year at the end of the month here. When we take a look at the sectors, real estate, that was a surprise, up 2.5% on the week. Energy down 0.5%. And again, we only had 3 losers in here. You had energy, you had home construction, and you had telecom. Ever so slight movements. You know, we had a 4-day week, and it just got kind of quiet. And the home construction, though, is the worst performer on the year, down 13.4%. But look at the 2 leaders here. Industrials, 8.4%. Utilities, 8.2%. Okay, so let's dive in and take a look at the Dow Diamonds. Now, I talked about, the title of this the video being too much bullishness. It's actually a thought. It does make me wonder. Everybody's talking about the fact that this is the strongest May performance for the S&P 500 since in 35 years, since 1990. And so, yeah, we've had a strong May. And so, what does that mean? When I look at this exposure index here that was tweeted, they talked about how it's signaling robust bullish sentiment and confidence. Well, look where it's sitting. It's at 88.41, very close to the peak that occurred in February. Okay, so I look at that and I think, well, yeah, we're getting back up into that territory. Not as high as, November, December-ish time frames and zones here in terms of the index, but it still does give me pause when all of a sudden you get the bullish enthusiasm for what happened in the month of May, the bounce back from April, and then you get that kind of a reading. Bottom line is you just got to pay attention to the price action in here. So let's take a look at the Dow Diamonds. Up 39 cents on Friday, barely moved. Up $6.52 for the week. When you look at the month, a little bit stronger picture on the month. It didn't quite close above April's high, but it was up 16.51 for the month of May. Okay, so that's that strong May, that readings that we're getting. Here's the Elliott Wave picture. I'm continuing to look for this. I don't need to show this on the weekly chart. Let me just show you. I'm looking for a 5th wave to play out in here. The real question is, how high is this going to go? And right now, when I look at the wave count on a daily basis, I think we've just got the first wave up in here within minute wave 3. Okay, so now, is this it on the first pullback for wave 2? It's pretty shallow when you look at the range of the move here. We haven't even pulled back 38.2%, much less 50 to 61.8% that you typically look for on a wave 2. So I really think there's a pretty good chance that we're going to pull back a little bit deeper in here before this little corrected move's done, and then we take off again. Be perfect timing for a summer rally. We'll see. Okay, so let's take a look at the SPY. Now, the SPY down 66 cents on Friday, a little doji type candle. up $10.28 for the week. So an inside, slightly up week. When you look at the month, a lot different picture. $34.85, closing well above the April high. Big, strong move in here. Now, again, we'll see what kind of continuation do we get right now. The reason I have this dashed line, I'm looking at this as kind of a key level. It's the high that occurred in May. And, do we continue to push and take that out? Or do we come down and start to take out the low here, which is, what is that low? 575.60. So I thought I had a dashed line in there for that, but, just think about that level right there. Do we take that out, or do we continue to push to the upside? Let's take a look at the Qs. Now the Qs were a little bit stronger. Notice how Thursday we pushed a little bit higher. Kind of, I think that's tied into Nvidia's earnings came out after the close on Wednesday, and then a little bit of the impact into Thursday. But wasn't a real bullish type day, and then we kind of sold off a little bit on Friday, but down 82 cents. So the key level I'm looking at here is, does this hold the 505.58, or do we take it out and start to correct a little more severe and hit these gaps down here that are just sitting, especially this one, which is the closest near-term gap. Up $9.87, continuing to push to the upside here on a weekly basis. And when you look at the month, up $43.64, and not only closing above April's high, it closed above March's high. So very, very strong month for the Qs. Okay, so that is the picture there. I'm not going to get into the Elliott Wave on that today. Let's take a look at IWM. Here's the range I'm looking at on IWM. It was down $1.05 on Friday, little doji type candle again also in here. Do we continue to push higher and take out 210.13, or do we break down? This is what I'm expecting. I'm expecting further breakdown. 199.65 is the near-term pivot point that I'm watching. Up 251, an inside, slightly up candle for the week. And then for the month, it too closed above April's high, but just a little bit of continuation, honestly, up $10.21. Okay, so that is the picture on the major indices. Let's take a look at a couple of the indicators. Okay, the first one I want to take a look at here is the McClellan Oscillator. We're sitting at minus 34 on the McClellan Oscillator. I look at that as dead neutral. I think of plus or minus 50 as kind of a neutral zone in here. We've gone from extremely very oversold in April to very overbought here and in early May. And now we're back into basically all of that's been neutralized. I think of stretching a rubber band, and now we're at a point where literally the market can go anywhere it wants to go. It's sitting at neutral. Okay, but let's take a look at the high yield bond fund. HYG I view as a kind of risk on, risk off type of indicator. It didn't do much here on Friday. It was up 7 cents, but let's take a look at the weekly view. So I've color coded this area up here, which is what? It's between like 79.3 and 80, slightly above 80. It's kind of a resistance zone that has developed. And that comes from a couple resistance points that occurred all the way back over here in 22. And it's going to be interesting to see. We are now nudging the last 2 out of the last 3 weeks. That very bullish week, 16 sectors positive, none, 0 down, and then now this week, 13 up, 3 down. We're right back up into this zone. So do we get repelled again, or does the market strengthen and push above? We'll see. I've got a feeling that this is going to be some pretty decent little resistance up here. It has ever since, the fall of 24. So over the last, 6 to 8 months, this has provided some pretty decent resistance. We'll see what happens now. Okay, and then I mentioned I wanted to revisit Nvidia. So let me go here, pull up Nvidia. So on Friday, it was down $4.06 after popping up on Thursday. But here's the look I want to look at. So I showed this last week. And, some people are naturally skeptical. Again, it's only a suspected pattern until it starts to play out, right? Just like anything else, you need price to confirm what you're looking at. But look what it did this week. Yeah, it was up $3.84. It's still sitting, at a close at 135.13. And I talked about where it split. The week that it split 10 for 1, it closed at 131.88. So it's up, what, a whopping $3.25, something like that, over the last year. But the price action that just happened in here, potential reversal, although it didn't close below where it opened. Okay, so I'll grant you that, and it's still a slightly up week. But the same kind of thing happened right in here. So we'll see what we get. It's just something to pay attention to. Anyway, there's a lot of, it's almost like we're at, there's so much PR around and noise around this stock and around the CEO that it seems like Gensanity Part 2 is playing out. Anyway, we'll see. Okay, that's it for this video. If you felt like the video was helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, hit that little subscriber button. And if you'd like more of this information, head on over to joehenches.net. Everyone, have a great week. We'll talk to you on the next video.